This program contains graphic material, including offensive language. Viewer discretion is advised. They rule California's open roads.
There's no doubt they're domestic terrorists.
Renegades with bad intentions.
We'll go in and f you up and kick your ass or kill you.
Give them respect.
Out of the
or pay the price.
Greed and power. Respect from fear.
They are Vagos.
Vagos have killed, they will kill, and they'll continue to kill.
I'm the jury, the judge, and the Grim Reaper. So which one do you want to play with?
Metro Los Angeles. Its 16 million plus residents make it the second largest city in the country. Just 65 miles east of downtown is San Bernardino. The largest county in the continental U.S., it stretches from LA to the Arizona state line, yet it has only 2 million residents.
It's uninhabited. I mean, there's just nobody living there. It's just a big, massive area.
It's also an escape for those that don't want to be found.
If you want to be left alone to do whatever you want, you go out to the desert.
San Bernardino County is a lot of empty desert, so it'd be very easy to make a body disappear.
But to one gang, it's home. The Vagos Outlaw Motorcycle Club. Their 500 members make them one of America's biggest biker gangs.
They'll use the fact that they're a member of the Vagos as intimidation. They do commit robberies, they do commit home invasion robberies, they commit rapes, they commit murders.
The image that they put forth is one of the classic motorcycle gangster. They expect to be treated that way and feared that way, whether it's motorists coming down the highway or patrons of a bar or restaurant.
The Vagos demand one thing.
I want my respect. Either you're going to give it to me, or I'm going to take it from you.
This Vagos member, Sniper, has to have his identity concealed.
You needed something done, you needed someone killed, you needed someone up, and come to me and it'd be done.
Sniper started living the gang life at age 9.
I was a little gangbanger when I was growing up. A lot of shootings, drug dealing, around with the big boys, a lot of murder for hires. Don't regret it. Don't ponder on it. I can still sleep at night.
By 1994, he joined the Vagos and started putting his violent ways to use for the gang.
I didn't do it because I had to. I did it because it was fun for me. If someone gets out of line, you just boom. Put a cap in them. That's it. You know, ain't gonna talk no more. You're just gonna be there looking at you mute.
The gang used this ruthless mentality to its advantage.
If there's a witness, you get rid of the witness. Chop them up, do what I have to do.
The victims of the Vagos include gang members, civilians, or anyone who owes them money or shows disrespect. But they reserve their most brutal treatment for snitches.
They call them a rat, talking bird. They have all these different phrases. That's not a beatdown. That's straight, you're gonna get shot.
The Vagos permanently silence informants and get rid of all evidence.
Heads and hands, they got dropped in with acid. It dissolves the skin. So all you have is a skull. The skull is easy. You know, you break it up, you grind it down, you know, it's ashes. But from the arms, legs, and torso, then I started cutting out pieces that were small enough that a bird, you know, crow or, you know, ants will eat it up real quick.
To cross the Vagos is a risk.
They might put the boots to them with 4 or 5 different members kicking somebody. They might, who knows, stick a gun in their face. There's a lot of ways you can terrorize people.
Lonesome, a Vago's associate, is one of the few willing to talk about the gang, despite the consequences.
I'm not really worried about retaliations. People get retaliated on for little things, major things.
Lonesome was recruited by a Vago's chapter president in 2004 after serving time for a felony.
When they seen the tattoos that I had, they knew that I'd been in prison, and they were looking for someone like that. Pretty much just another thug like they were.
The Vagos also liked his fearless attitude.
Somebody that could handle business, somebody who wasn't afraid to do things that they were involved in, anything illegal, anything dangerous.
Lonesome thrived in the gang's most lucrative business, trafficking stolen motorcycles.
Every club, they need money. And so what started out to be was buying stolen Harley Davidsons, and then it just escalated.
He was quickly promoted from thief to assassin.
My reputation was basically, I was going to be a pit bull. Just, you want somebody whacked? No problem, The dude's dead, big deal.
But Lonesome had another alliance. He was secretly working with the feds to gather information.
I was wearing a wire. And if I wasn't wearing a wire, I stayed in close contact with the detectives.
Lonesome is a professional snitch with deep ties to the law.
I've been working with law enforcement for about 20 years. It's something I'd done for a long time and something I was good at.
The stakes couldn't be higher.
They're willing to kill, whatever they got to do to survive. If somebody's standing in the way, something's going to happen to that person.
Lonesome isn't the only Vago to double-cross the gang. One of their most notorious snitches is Paul Moniz, a.k.a. Hammer, a high-ranking Vagos officer. He was drawn to the gang by the motorcycles and the outlaw lifestyle.
He was a pretty violent guy. Got into a lot of conflicts. He had quite a drug habit, which got him into a lot of trouble.
But Hammer was not the dedicated soldier most thought he was.
Hammer provided some very useful information. Without that information, we would not have been able to proceed like we did.
I don't think that anybody really ever suspected that, he would work with law enforcement.
Bob Reza is a former agent for the California Department of Justice. He says Hammer agreed to work with him in 2000 because the gang no longer had his back.
He told me, yeah, man, every time I got arrested, no one helped me. I had to come out and, start all over again. So he was pretty bitter. He was angry, tired of the life. And as I said, he didn't want to go back to prison.
Reza convinced the biker to turn state's evidence and gather intelligence on the Vagos. Hammer then used a video camera to record the gang's activities.
Can't hang straight up hot. Yeah, it's cut. Cut half and half, 50-50.
Hammer was an officer in his chapter and had complete access as such. He was able to monitor their activities by both recording it, photographing, even videotape some of it, and provide that back to ATF.
The video provided the DOJ with evidence about the gang's illegal activities, including gun trafficking and drug running.
Oh, yeah.
Vago's drug of choice, methamphetamine.
They're relying a lot more on the methamphetamine trade from Mexico coming into the United States and then transporting it from there.
I got 4 ounces of meth. After I cut it all up and I sold it, I kept a good half ounce for me, so it keep me going, I do a few lines of meth and drive for hours.
The gang does these things for one reason: money. 23rd, 2004. The Vagos got a tip about a major drug deal going down with a man named John.
A person who had a lot of money was looking to do a large-scale drug deal with a local Vago member who was supplying drugs at the time in large quantities. He was asked to wait at this friend's house. It was kind of a mutual gathering place.
The Vagos decided to take advantage of the situation and sent two members, 26-year-old Daniel Foreman and 27-year-old Ryan Madison, to take care of business.
Two Vago members were pretty much assigned to go do the residential robbery, knew that he was going to have the money.
They stormed in, hoping to steal the cash.
Two Vago members entered the home, masked, both armed, and asked which one of you is John. The two men inside, neither one of them were John because John had taken his money and gone home.
Enraged, the gang members threatened the men at gunpoint.
The younger of the two men, Mr. Gavin, got up and tried to run for the door.
The gangsters weren't about to let the man escape. Foreman opened fire.
The shooting of Mr. Gavin was a demonstration of power and authority in that situation.
You just roll in there, do what you gotta do, you know?
San Bernardino, California. This little-known town is one of the most all-American of cities. It's the birthplace of the Golden Arches, the most American of restaurants. But this town is also home to something a little less pure.
It's really the birthplace of the biker culture. Route 66 goes right through San Bernardino and goes right to where it all started.
Their name, Vagos. This outlaw motorcycle gang has called this stretch of road home for nearly 50 years.
When you're driving down the street and you see a pack of 50 Vagos pass by you, that you're going to move out of their way, that there's a sense of fear and you're not going to do anything to disrespect them.
Today's motorcycle craze grew out of World War II. Harley-Davidsons were military machines, and the men that rode them couldn't leave them behind when they returned to civilian life. But society wasn't ready for bikers.
They were kind of looked out as outsiders from the general public. They didn't fit in really anywhere, and most of them were motorcycle enthusiasts, and they banded together and formed these clubs, which later turned into gangs.
The first Californian motorcycle clubs weren't just about riding. Their names, Booze Fighters, and the Pissed Off Bastards of Purdue, or POBOBs, tell their story. These bikers embraced the outlaw image.
It was just the culture of the hot rod, the culture of the motorcycle. It all started in Southern California, and that's the draw to the outlaw biker community to Southern California.
In 1947, this lifestyle hit the mainstream.
They had an annual run up in Hollister, California, you know, drink and party and ride their motorcycles.
The Booze Fighters and the POBOBs got into a drunken brawl. One of them was arrested and jailed. And the mob went crazy and rioted for 3 days. They had to call in for outside help to get them under control.
The riot made national news, and the clubs became known as the One Percenters.
The American Motorcycle Association released a statement saying that 99% of the people that ride motorcycles are law-abiding citizens, and it's the 1% that are the outlaws.
The incident inspired a movie starring Marlon Brando called The Wild One.
The outlaws started to enjoy this Hollywood status. People wanted to know where it all started, and they all started gravitating over there.
Memberships in the clubs exploded, and new ones formed overnight. In 1948, the Hells Angels established their first chapter in San Bernardino. They shared the roads with another biker gang, the Psychos.
The two founding members were Latinos. At the time, Latinos were really unrepresented, for lack of a better term, in the biker culture. There was a few, but essentially it was dominated by, white males.
In 1965, some members of the Psychos, unhappy with the gang, broke off to form their own club. The Vagos were born.
Vagos is a Spanish term meaning vagabond or wanderer. So that's how they started.
The Vagos are a spin-off gang, predominantly a Hispanic motorcycle gang.
The Vagos embraced the counterculture lifestyle.
In the 60s and 70s were a lot easier time for bikers. They could go where they pleased without much attention, as long as they weren't creating a ruckus.
But the Vagos weren't just out to have a good time. By the mid-1960s, the gang had begun to build a methamphetamine empire that was raking in a considerable amount of money.
You know, the bikers, that was their drug of choice. Out there in the desert, in the middle of nowhere, is where they were operating all the meth labs.
They've used different methods, different locations to cook their dope, whether it's in a mobile home or in a bus buried underground.
They move a lot of dope, a lot of guns, from California to Vegas, from California to Oregon, from California to Washington.
The Vagos also began what would become their biggest business, running chop shops.
They're stripping down the bikes, switching the numbers on them, and selling the bikes and exporting them out of the country.
You could be talking in the millions, you know. How many bikes have they stolen and sold? How many drugs have they sold? You know, how many people have they robbed? That's a lot of money.
The gang began to recruit new members to help with their growing businesses. One was Paul Moniz, nicknamed Hammer.
He was from Orange County, a gearhead, like motorcycles, fast cars, very outgoing personality, had a bigger-than-life kind of personality, you know.
Hammer enjoyed the biker life, parties, women, drugs, and the reputation as an outlaw.
I would ask him, why did you join the club? And he said, man, I just love the lifestyle, man. You know, I could do whatever I want. All the women I wanted, travel anywhere, used to like get high.
Then, in 1998, Hammer was sentenced to 16 months in prison for possession of a controlled substance with intent to sell. Once behind bars, he felt abandoned by the gang.
When he went to prison, you know, they came in and took his motorcycle, took all his belongings. He felt sort of betrayed.
Agent Bob Riza turned him into an informant with one small favor.
He had a real bad abscess tooth. Actually exploded in his mouth. And he goes, look, man, I gotta go to the dentist. I got no money. So I got him some money to go to the dentist.
Hammer knew being a snitch could cost him his life.
With an informant such as Hammer, they live in the constant fear of being dealt with, being hit, being murdered. Every day as you wake up and you have to think about it, somebody put a bomb under my car.
We had that conversation. I said, look, if you do this, we'll make sure that we keep you safe, as safe as we can.
Hammer started informing by phone. But soon, he was filming illegal acts for authorities.
He was handing the camera off to all the members, like a community camera. And, you know, so we got some pretty great video.
Bump on that.
Satchel Bob.
It's information to be able to view a meeting or to listen to see how they plan their operations, any criminal activity that they're planning to do.
The feds began building drug and weapons cases against the gang. But another case quickly grabbed their attention. October 28, 2000, Colton, California. 20-year-old Marcus Aguirre was hosting a late-night Halloween bash when Zachary Mena, a Vagos prospect or new recruit, and two others decided to crash the party.
They arrived, the homeowner didn't know them, they were a little rowdy, he asked them to leave.
It's clearly a sign of disrespect. They're telling that person to leave. How dare you disrespect the Vagos?
Two of the men grabbed Aguirre and pinned him against a wall. Mena pulled out a knife.
And then the prospect stabbed him, actually followed him out into the street before he collapsed.
Aguirre was nearly gutted with the knife before he bled to death in the street. The Vagos members were all arrested. Mena was convicted of murder. The 2 other Vagos were sentenced to 6 years for manslaughter. By 2002, the Department of Justice had seen enough. They arrested more than a dozen members of the gang in a sweep called Operation Gemini. Much of the evidence was gathered through the cooperation of Hammer.
Hammer testified against a number of those members in open court, and they were well aware by the end of the case who the person was that had been talking about them.
Operation Gemini ended with more than a dozen convictions, solidifying the Vago status as a criminal street gang. But the trouble was just beginning for Hammer.
After cases have been concluded, it's not over for those informants. They're constantly looking behind their back, checking to see who's following them.
The Vagos quickly put a price on Hammer's head.
They put a hit out on Hammer that they wanted to post his photo up to a local website and wanted him found and killed.
I mean, a bullet costs $2. If I even feel you're talking to the cops, you're done. Gone. Murder. Dead.
San Bernardino, California. This desert city is ruled by a ruthless gang that takes no prisoners. The Vagos. The gang has a motto: live Vago, die Vago.
Live Vago, die Vago. It's all pretty much like blood in, blood out type thing, you know?
It's a reminder to live the Vagos way or pay the consequences. The Vagos treat their bikes like sacred items.
You're not allowed to touch another brother's bike. That's like his prized possession. For example, he gets arrested, you're not even allowed to ride his bike home. You have to tow it home for him.
The only thing more important is the gang's colors. The Vagos call the jackets that hold their patches cuts.
Cut would be the denim vest that they wear with their patch on the back.
The gang claims certain territories using a traditional bottom rocker.
Their rockers indicate their geographic location, and then their other patches and emblems that are badges of honor for them. Insignia such as patches and tattoos are key to the identity of the Vagos. It is what advertises who they are to the public. It is what instills the fear.
The Vagos logo is the Norse god of mischief, Loki.
He's the god of mischief, and that kind of coincides with the club or the gang's beliefs.
And imagine driving down the road and all of a sudden here comes a column of 40, 50, 60 motorcycles, and what are they wearing? They're all wearing the same color and with these demonic looking patches.
Though the majority of Vagos are white, the gang's colors are a nod to their Hispanic roots.
The colors of the Vagos are actually the colors of the Mexican flag. You know, the green and the red.
The Vagos also have a strict set of rules that they live by, called bylaws.
The Vagos are a very structured and formal criminal street gang. They have bylaws that rule their behavior. They have a national and local structure, has a president, vice president, sergeant at arms.
Women are considered to be property and are viewed as less important than bikes or gang colors.
Oh yeah.
It's your club, whatever's related to your club, your bike, and then is your property, that's your woman.
Look at that.
Vagos women, whom they refer to as old ladies, wear patches that identify them as property of the gang.
They put a VOL, that's Vagos old lady, and they put a property of and whatever your name in the back.
Some of the rules that the Vagos go by are you're not allowed to have sex with another member's old lady without first getting permission from that member.
Some women are given even less respect than old ladies. These women are called turnouts.
Turnouts, which means they're essentially community property. So, you know, if they're there and you want to get with them, you can. They don't have any say. That's the reality of, you know, their place in the club.
Turnouts are literally up for grabs.
I mean, women are just, you know, women are women. I mean, they don't mean nothing. You know, you can pass them around, you can, you know, buy them from each other or whatever. Basically, you know, they're hookers to them.
The Vagos are also backed by support clubs that they allow to hang around the gang.
The Vagos have support clubs throughout the state and throughout the country that will support them in runs, in rallies, and identify themselves as associates of the Vagos motorcycle gang.
They are part of what's known as the Green Nation, and they pay dues to the Vagos. Only full gang members can wear the Vagos colors. Prospects must go through a hazardous initiation period.
Well, they believe that they're coming into this brotherhood, that they're coming into power, that they're going to be treated equally among the other members, and that they'll get a piece of the pie.
The prospects are seen as a lower form of being.
The Vagos treat their recruits or their prospects as slaves, washing dishes, picking up their kids after school, picking up the laundry.
Be the errand boy that goes and handles stuff, carry the guns, carry the drugs, whatever's asked, period, you have to do.
There is no time limit on earning a patch. Prospects must simply prove they deserve it. For members like Sniper, there's no moment quite like the one when they earn their patch.
Like when you're a little kid, you want a certain bike or a certain toy, and finally your dad gets it for you, and you're all, yeah, that's how it was for me. And I was out for like 3 days straight, just flying my colors everywhere I was going. I was happy.
This rare video from 2000 shows an actual Vagos membership ceremony.
They'll have a formal kind of a ceremony where the patch holder better be prepared to stitch that patch on right that minute.
This brother's got about 5 minutes to sew them things on. Sewing them on. Hey, did you learn how to sew in prison?
Right.
Many Vagos wear patches with the number 22.
The number 22 in Vago culture represents the letter V in the alphabet, V being the 22nd letter.
They will put their 22s on rings, on patches, spray painted on their gates. Even had one Vago member who painted his house numbers green and put them in the shape of a letter V.
They also use the number 13, which stands for the 13th letter of the alphabet, M, and depending on preference, marijuana or methamphetamine.
And the Vagos generally will wear it at a mostly upright position for if you're still using or dealing either of those drugs, and upside down if you're not.
The gang also awards wings for sexual acts that are witnessed by other members. The acts are signified by the color of the wings.
Anything that you do in the club, you get a patch for it. You know, the dirtier things you do, or the filthier, then that's the kind of patch you get.
Vagos also get permanently patched by tattooing certain emblems directly onto their skin.
The bylaws define what tattoos you can wear, like to get a heart patch, you know, tattoo over your heart, a Vago tat. I think it was 5 years or 10 years.
Some patches are reserved for only the most hardcore members.
The Loki head, as well as MF, representing their willingness to engage or having engaged in assaultive behavior.
The MF, that means that's when you've done something for the club. I collected about 45 of those things that they just kept on giving me.
Sniper admits to killing multiple people in order to gain the coveted MF patch.
If I can estimate how many people I've taken care of for the Vagos, I'd say about between 35 to 38 people I've dealt for them.
To keep below the radar, the gang encourages members to take off their colors when they're committing crimes or when police are close by.
You know, when law enforcement's heavy in that area or something like that, you keep your patch covered up. You know, that just brings down heat, especially if you're carrying drugs or guns or anything like that.
I wouldn't even wear my colors when I go take care of you. You know, you wouldn't even know it's me. Walk up to you wherever you're at and put a bullet in your head. Walk back, get in the car and drive off.
To Sniper, it's not just about keeping his identity hidden.
I would never do dirt with the patch. I care about it too much to dirty it like that. I didn't want to put blood on it, in other words.
The Vagos don't want literal dirt on their colors either. They have a law that says never let a patch hit the ground.
Get in a fight, your colors aren't supposed to hit the ground. If you see one brother getting into it with somebody and you're there, then you better back them up.
The gang expects prospects in particular to ensure this never happens.
They will react immediately and as a group, especially if they're armed with pool cues or baseball bats.
But there's one rule the Vagos hold more sacred than all others: no snitching. To them, snitches are less than human, varmints to be exterminated.
The Vagos don't like rats. See the t-shirts that say, snitches get stitches.
When they think they have somebody that within that might be an informant to law enforcement, they have acted out violently. That has ended in the death of these people.
July 2004, San Bernardino County, California. Two Vagos, armed with guns, invaded a home, hoping to steal drug money.
They had gone to take some money from a man who was waiting to purchase dope. When they arrived at the house, the man they intended to rob was not there.
Instead, they found two unarmed men and no money. Frustrated, they interrogated the men at gunpoint. Without warning, one hostage, James Gavin, bolted for the door.
The first Vago in line shot him in the back.
Gavin stumbled to the front yard, then collapsed. His body was later found there by emergency personnel.
The fact that Mr. Gavin ran despite those commands and orders, his shooting therefore was in reaction to show that they were in charge.
The gang members fled. Within a few weeks, authorities received an anonymous tip identifying the shooter. They arrested the Vagos member, but dropped the charges, opting to build a bigger case against the gang. One of their prime informants, Hammer, had provided deep throat information for years. But Hammer now had a price on his head and was no help to authorities.
This was years later that the Vagos were still looking for him. They were upset. They decried him as disloyal. He was not a brother. He was never a brother.
Now authorities turned to another informant, Lonesome. Lonesome was considered a trusted member of the gang and was privy to their most heinous crimes.
Oh, they definitely thought I was a complete 100% killer. Somebody that knew how to handle himself, and they wanted to use my talents for their purposes.
In October 2004, the Vagos asked Lonesome to be part of another home invasion. The plan was to meet at a tattoo parlor in Sacramento. The Vagos chapter president, Yak Yak, was there to give the thieves their mission.
Yak, and they were talking about this guy, had a lot of money and had a lot of weed. They wanted to kill the guy, take his money, kill his girlfriend if she was there.
Yak Yak and the Vagos suspected the dealer was holding $300,000. Lonesome was told to find and execute him. That afternoon, Lonesome spotted his target leaving a local store, but reported back to Yak Yak that he had lost his target in traffic.
I came back to the tattoo shop. They had found out that this guy had been tipped off by detectives that he was going to be killed, that there was a hit out on him, or he was going to be robbed and murdered.
The Vagos realized they had a snitch in their ranks.
Who's the rat? Whether they knew there was a rat or not, they didn't know where this information was coming from.
Yak Yak called Lonesome to his home for a private meeting.
When I got to his house, he wanted to leave all the phones on the table. You know, he's got a gun. He's got a shotgun.
Yak Yak began patting Lonesome down, looking for a wire.
Yeah, he squats down and has a shotgun across his knee, and that's when he's patting me down. And that's probably why, holding that shotgun across there, he might have missed that one piece of the wire I had.
Lonesome was wearing a wire that somehow went undetected. It was a close call.
I was just going to write it out right to the end, and like I said, if his fingers brushed it, then it was the one right there. It could have been all bad for a minute.
Yak Yak was convinced Lonesome wasn't a snitch. He gave him a new assignment, asking him to take out another member, Big Wood, who was one of the leader's best friends.
It was greed on Yak's part, totally.
Yak Yak wanted Big Wood killed because he had just scored a huge drug deal and was holding a lot of money.
He wanted somebody to literally blow Big Wood's head off, you know, and he didn't want, you know, he didn't want him to be able to see his face during the funeral.
This surveillance video is of the gang members planning the hit.
Dude, what else would I do to this punk? His mom ain't even gonna recognize him, you know what I mean? They had maps where he stayed at, where he lived at, where he parked his vehicle at, where he'd catch him, and if anyone was around him, they'd have to get killed too.
This video also gave law enforcement a key piece of evidence when members began admitting on camera that they were part of a criminal organization.
Straight up, like, we call a motorcycle club and we're not this and that, right, to the police and the papers. We're outlaw motorcycle gang.
Yak Yak and his hired killers were arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit murder. The hit was never carried out, but the gang suspected there was a rat among them.
They had to have known, you know, relatively quickly.
Then in 2006, the feds launched a plan to clear out the outlaw bikers for good. More than 700 law enforcement agents in 5 counties simultaneously raided Vago homes, executing 63 search warrants. They rounded up 25 members in a pre-dawn sweep known as Operation 22 Green.
When gang members are brought into a command post at 6 o'clock in the morning, still in their pajamas, and they're looking around at the amount of law enforcement officers present and are confronted with the nature of the investigation, they clearly were surprised.
Caught up in the sweep were Daniel Foreman and Ryan Madison, the 2 men responsible for the 2004 murder of James Gavin. Foreman was convicted of murder and sentenced to life behind bars. Madison flipped on Foreman, testifying against him in exchange for a lighter sentence. Operation 22 Green was a major blow to the gang, but there was no guarantee the informants wouldn't face payback.
If I even feel you're talking to the cops, you're done. I'm the one that's coming after you. You know, no one else. I'd kill you if I have to. You know, I'd kill your wife, your kids. It's just the way it is.
San Bernardino, California, March 2006. The Vagos were rounded up in a pre-dawn raid dubbed Operation 22 Green, leading to more than a dozen convictions. The gang had suffered its worst blow in 40 years, but its members quickly turned their attention to the cause of the takedown.
The ATF operation had drastic effects not only on membership, the structure of their chapters, trust amongst themselves. Immediately you could tell the looks in the room were, who's the rat?
Snitching is particularly disrespectful. The Vagos won't stand for it. Like we talked about, snitches get stitches.
The Vagos never forget snitches. And after testifying against his brothers, Hammer was looking over his shoulder.
People like Hammer, they're hanging themselves out there. You start providing information against a group that you know is a very violent group, and they will make all attempts to come back for you.
The Vagos were still looking for him. They were very, very upset.
Hammer relocated to Arizona.
He bought himself a nice little house in a secluded area, started working locally in that city. As I told you, he's a pretty handy guy. A real hard worker. I mean, I tell you what, he's not lazy.
He started a new life, but was never able to kick some of his old habits. One morning in 2007, his old police contact, Bob Reza, got a phone call from Hammer's girlfriend.
She was crying. He just said, hey, he's dead. And she was just crying and told me, oh my God, I think he overdosed on drugs.
He helped bring the club down. He felt bad about that, despite the fact that these people would have wanted him dead. Because they were his friends before he got into trouble.
When word spread of Hammer's death, so did the rumors.
Hammer got high for a long time. And he knew drugs, That just seemed a little suspicious to me. I spoke with other members who said that, that he had been murdered, that he had been given a hot shot. I don't know any of that to be true.
Lonesome decided not to go into hiding.
They had no idea at all that they were being wired up any time that I was around them. No one's ever approached me, not one time about it, anywhere.
He has never come face to face with the Vagos since then, and says he doesn't fear retribution from the gang.
I'm not worried about retaliation, because if they were going to retaliate, they'd have handled that and I would have never known about it.
He does wonder what might have happened if he had not become an informant.
Had circumstances been different, had I not worked with law enforcement, had I really went into this and was going to do this, when it came time to get paid that $30,000, was I up to get a bullet in the head?
Sniper says he stepped away from the Vagos a few years ago. Angry with the gang's leaders, the final straw was when they canceled a hit at the last second.
I was set up, to take them out, and then at the last minute, they called it off. I lost money, what they were going to give me, and it really pissed me off, because there was a new rifle I bought, and I really wanted to do it.
Sniper says Vagos leaders didn't take it well when he gave back his patch.
I laid my colors on the table, and they said, whoa, 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 you can't go. It's not that easy. It's going to cost you 15 grand or your bike.
Sniper pulled out his Glock 40 and cocked it.
I said, what you're gonna get, instead of your 15 grand or a bike, you're gonna catch a bullet in your head right now. So you let it be and I'll let it be. We're done. I turned around and walked out. Never heard nothing from him again.
Though Sniper has parted ways with the Vagos, he says he's willing to continue carrying out hits for the right price and the right gang.
I haven't killed anyone lately. I still move dope. I go to work up every day. If I fly colors one day, I don't know what they're gonna be.
The Vagos continue to fly their colors, intimidating everyone who crosses their path on the desert roads of San Bernardino and the streets of Los Angeles.
They're going to be around. The Vagos will kill. They have killed, they will kill, and they'll continue to kill. Absolutely.
It's the future of the Vagos. Yeah, they're going to be around because they've been around for a long time. The Vagos are very safe, very rough. They're not backing down.